That's a book that I'm reading nowadays by Veer Singh, edited by Lieutenant Colonel JK.Guleria. And today I'm going to read a piece written by Khushwant Singh. Dr. Bhai Vir Singh, a multifaceted personality. So, what has Mr. Khushwant Singh to say now? Dr. Bhai, I'm honored by the invitation of writing on the life and works of the late Dr. Bhai Vir Singh. I must, however, make it clear that at the very outset, that although I am among the fortunate few who had the privilege of knowing him personally, my study of his writings leave much to be desired. So he writes. Then he writes that I had the audacity, he says that my knowledge of Punjabi is most elementary, and I had the audacity to translate some of his smaller poems into English and publish them. Dr. Bhai Vir Singh was a many-faceted personality. He was a reformer, educationist, political thinker, and not a politician. Religious, divine, theologian, philosopher, prose writer, novelist, and poet. This incredible combination of talents made him a formidable person. There were also many contradictions in his character. Although extremely mild-mannered and soft-spoken, his attachment to the orthodox tradition of Khalsa brooked no tolerance towards those who deviated from them. Although through his writings he spearheaded the reform movement known as the Singh Sabha, he rarely appeared in public. Although he was a political mentor to the leading politicians and social workers of the time, he never involved himself personally on either politics or social work. Above all, he was an extremely shy man, a man who spoke very little. His modesty baffled everyone. It may surprise you to know that in a lifetime of writing, he produced almost as much as the 27 volumes of encyclopedia, and he became a household name in the Punjab. Not one of his books ever carried his name. The little I recall of him when he was in his late 50s in Amritsar, I will tell you. He rose very early and began his life at prayer. After a small breakfast, he drove in the phaeton, that is Tanga or whatever, to Hall Bazaar and spent the morning in the office of his weekly paper, the Khalsa Samachar. After lunch, he retired for a while and then wrote for some hours. It was only at tea time that he received his innumerable visitors. Even during these sessions, he spoke very little. He spent the evenings in the garden, tending the many exotic plants and flowers he grew. He was passionately fond of flowers. His special favorites being narcissus and the chrysanthemum. His day ended as it began, with meditation and prayer. He had a very regulated, disciplined life. He was as punctilious in his habits as he was punctual in his daily routine. He traveled, but not very much. As a young man, his favorite was Kashmir, which is the subject of many of his poems. It was a full life crammed with work and dedicated to the betterment of his community and the worship of his gurus and the Granth Sahib. It had a fitting close. In the summer of 1957, he was due to leave Amritsar for Kasauli when a bad tooth delayed his departure. The teeth turned septic and fever overtook him. There is a little doubt that he knew his end was near. He lay in bed, folded his hands in a gesture of farewell, and departed from the world with cries of Sat Sri Akal, God is trust, ringing in his ears. Despite his many-faceted personality, Bhai Vir Singh is primarily known as a great man of letters. As I've mentioned already, he put his hand to all forms of written word. He wrote a few novels, of which Sundari and Vijay Singh enjoyed immense popularity at the time. At the time, they were published because they extolled Sikh heroism and Sikh values at a time where Sikhs had begun to forget their past glories and their values had suffered much erosion. Without sounding factious, I would say that their place is in the history of Sikh consciousness rather than in the pages of great creative writing. Bhai Sahib's place in literature will be as a poet. He began his first great work, Rana Surat Singh, in 1905. This is followed by two equally large works, Kalgidhar Chamkaur and Guru Nanak Chamatkar. Kalgidhar Chamatkar and Guru Nanak Chamatkar. Then followed several anthologies of short poems, Matak, Hullare, Bijliyan, Dehar, Har and others. He also wrote extensive commentaries on the sacred scriptures of the Sikhs and extensively researched works on the source of Sikh history. Influences, if any, to be detected in his works were primarily the writings of the Sikh gurus and Muslim Sufi martyrs, mystics like Bulleh Shah and Waris Shah. What equally famous contemporary Sir Muhammad Iqbal did for the Muslims through his great poems Shikwa and Jawab-e-Shikwa, Bhai Vir Singh did for the Sikhs. He restored the Sikhs' confidence in the divine ministries of their gurus and the eternal truths enshrined in the Granth Sahib. He fired the Sikhs' imagination by recovering the tales of chivalry of their warrior Guru Gobind Singh as well as of the deeds of reckless valor of his followers. At the same time, Bhai Vir Singh, through the reform movement, which he was the animating spirit, exhorted the Sikhs to follow the forward-looking and ever-buoyant spirits, Chardi Kala. To this one man, the Sikh community owes a debt of gratitude that it will never be able to pay, says Khushwant Singh.